Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. Happy Christmas Eve to everyone, anybody that does celebrate Christmas, so Merry Christmas to you all. And in this video I'm going to show you how to model from scratch a magnifying glass. I'm also going to go over how to UV unwrap it correctly to the best of my knowledge, and also into Substance Painter, where we will give it a custom smart material that we'll create from scratch ourselves. And I'll try and be as detailed as I can as I go through the video. So I have a reference image here which I'll link in the excuse me which I will link in the description of the video on the channel once I upload that. So here we have our reference image of our magnifying glass, a really cool fancy 1941 Henry Hughes Son Limited, London, and this is what appears to be made out of, I would say, brass, brushed brass by the brushings there on the edges. So we could simulate that quite well in Substance. So we're going to start off by adding in a circle. So we're going to get rid of our cube. I've got the keystroke simulator here, so it'll show you the keys that I press. I'll pop that down. Let's have a look. Best place. I'll leave that there just so you can see the keys that I'm pressing. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, when you load into Blender, you'll have a cube kind of like this view of a camera and a light. So you can delete your camera and your light, and you'll just be left with a cube. So we can also delete that as well. And then to add a reference image, you're going to go Shift and A, and you'll see Image and then Reference. Now bear in mind, wherever your camera is facing will be the orientation. So this plane will look at the camera. So it will be set in the orientation of your view. So you want to press 1 on the keyboard or on the number pad, and then add your reference image in, and then you'll be able to have it so it faces the camera straight. So it'll be going this way. Once you've got that added in, we're going to add Shift A, and let's get a circle. Now I apologize if I cough. I do have asthma, so when I talk a lot, I end up coughing more. So it's kind of a bit of a double-edged sword. The more I talk, the more I cough. So you'll have to bear with me. I'll try and edit them out as much as I can. So we're going to add a circle in, which you can see. So it should automatically add that circle into that 3D cursor location. The 3D cursor is this little thing down here. So if I hold Shift and right click, we can see we can move that around. If we press Shift and C, it'll recenter the camera, and it'll also recenter the 3D cursor. So wherever your 3D cursor is wherever your object will spawn. So if I do Shift right click, Shift A, and then add a cube, you can see the cube is now spawned on its origin point onto the 3D cursor. So let's do Shift and C, and let's delete that cube. Okay, so now that we have our circle in, we can see here on our reference image that the bottom is wider, and then it kind of comes in, goes out. We have a little bit of a lip, and then it's a straight shaft cylinder all the way up, and then we have a bit of a lip. So it is mirrored, so it would probably benefit us from doing one side on a mirror and then finishing it off on the other side. So what we can do is, let's scale this down. First of all, let's press 1 to go in the front view. Let's move our reference image so we can see what we're doing. Now, it has a little bit of a lip at the bottom, looks like some kind of sticky out groove part. So we can do that last. We'll do from here up first with this nice curve, and then we'll go up, in, and then up halfway to about here, and then we can mirror that on itself. So let's add a mirror now, and then do it on the Z-axis. Will that work? Yeah, I suppose that would, but would have to start on that center point. Yeah, we can do that. So let's do the shaft first. Let's have a look, and then we can scale that in. We've got some duped verts. Let's go back a few steps. Control Z. I didn't realize I've duplicated verts there. So we won't do the mirror. We'll just start on the bottom and then we'll mirror afterwards. So we're going to zoom in, scale this down, select all, scale it in about that size. So you can see at the very top left on my screen, you can see my scale X, Y, and Z. So if you want to copy that accurately, if you want to copy the same as myself, you can just, I'll hold it there for a second, you can pause it, you can note down those details. So it's 0.61 on the X, 0.61 on the Y, and 0.61 on the Z. So from there, we're going to go and zoom in a little bit. I'm going to move my reference image across, just like this. I'm going to select my circle. Now we're going to go up with E and then press the Z key. Move that up just like that. And then we're going to go E and S to go in. So what I mean by that is we've pressed E to add an extra edge of an extra loop, and then we've pressed S to scale inwards. So now that we've done that, we can then come up. So we're going to go and press G and Z, and then S to scale in, and then we're going to go E and Z key, S to scale in, G and Z to move that down a little bit, and then we're going to try and simulate this curve up now. We can add the extra detail in near the end. So we're going to go E and Z key to move up. We're going to S to scale out. G and Z to move up. Now that we have that bottom section done, which it doesn't look perfectly accurate, but it's not a problem because we can adjust these curve parameters a little bit later on in the modeling process. Excuse me. And we're going to go and add a little bit of a lip, because you can see here at the top it's got a bit of a, where we've got the darker brass, it goes light because it looks like there's a bit of a straight edge there before it comes in and then goes up. So we're going to go E and Z key to move up slightly, then E and S to scale in about there, and then we're going to go E and Z to move up. So we're going to go about halfway, I'd say probably about that high, maybe a little bit less. G and Z down about there. How's that look? That looks okay. And then we can add a mirror modifier to this. So let's do mirror Z, and then let's move that. We don't want it to be, we want, should we do, let's move this down. Let's Control A, rotation scale, and then set origin to geometry, and then do this one on the Z axis. We want it to be here though, so what we want to do is let's add an empty plane axis, and then we'll do this like so. So we're going to add a mirror, we're going to move this down, and then we have our plane axis is going to be our location, which is what we've selected for our mirror object. So basically all we've done there is like we've added a mirror, and now this is just reflecting itself from here to here. So that's pretty much done. We just need to round these edges off, although it is slightly different at the top. So that's something I should have really looked at before doing the mirror, but that's something we could probably we probably could get away with. No, let's model it. Let's model it. We're being lazy. Right, okay. We'll model that in. Let's move that up. So we're about here. So we're going to grab our make sure we go wireframe. So Z and then go wireframe. Make sure we've got all of these top verts, and then we're going to go up on the Z axis again to about maybe roughly around there. And now we can see here, so let's move our reference image a little bit closer so we can see. So we can see here now that this is that top edge. So we're at this, we're at this top edge, and we want to come out. So there's a good trick for this. We can add 3 sections. So we're going to go into edit mode, press E to come up, S to scale out, and then we're going to go E to go up on the Z axis, and then we're going to do the same again, E to go up, and then S to scale in, and that will give us this nice rounded edge like this, which we can then clean up later on in the modeling process. And then we're going to do this hourglass kind of shape. So we're going to go E, go all the way up to here, scale in, E to go up, and then S to scale out, like so. And then we're going to do the same again as what we did here. So we're going to go E, Z, scale out, E, and then the Z, scale up on the Z axis, E, Z, scale up on the Z, scale in with S. Let's take this one, let's move that in slightly. Take this one, let's move that in slightly as well. Okay, let's get that top edge. And then we're going to come up and finish this top edge off. But before we do that, before we add any inner geometry to this, before we change the top section, we're going to add a seam straight down the back of this object. So if we go around, so if you press 1, that's the front view. If you hold Control and press 1, that's the back view. So we're going to go to edge selection, which would be this one here. And then we're going to click on this with Alt and left click. And then we're going to press U and then mark seam. That'll help us out later, because when we add some geometry at the top and the bottom, it will go all the way through and all the way around, but we only want this back section, because when we unwrap it, this is where we're going to add our cut to flatten this cylinder shape out. So now that we've done that, and we have roughly our shape that we're looking for, we can then add in a little bit more detail, and we can also finish off these caps. So let's go to the top of our model, and we can select this upper rim. Make sure we're actually on it. There we go. Select that upper rim, press E to go in, S to scale inwards, put my teeth back in, and then we're going to go, let's have a look, we're going to go up, so E and Z, move that up, about there. Now we don't need to add any details. Sorry, we don't need to add any faces to this top section, because the loop for the magnifying glass or the glass frame will be over this and cover it. So that'll be hidden geometry anyway, so we won't need to worry about adding anything in, as it will mold into this. So now that that's done, we could probably actually add these two as seam cuts. Mark seam. There we go. Okay, so I don't need that as a seam. Now that that's done, we can seal the bottom and then add our cuts. So let's go to the bottom. This is where I'll have to use our imagination, because there isn't really any pictures. So we're just going to go and select this bottom loop. We're going to press E and S to extrude inwards. We're going to press G and the Z key to drag it down. E and Z to move it down. E, S to go in. So we have something that looks like this, and then we're going to go GZ key, and then ES, and then we're going to go to face, and then we're going to go grid fill. See, now we have this, and then what we can do then is we can select this rim, press U, and then mark seam. So that will cut out this top section and make it flat. Okay, so now that that's done, let's see what it looks like with a sub modifier on. Okay, so that's nice and smooth, but we also want these to be a little bit more standout. So what we're going to do, let's deactivate that for a second. We're going to add a loop in the center. Let's add it again, so Control 1. Let's scale that out. We're going to select this loop, Alt left click, double G to edge slide, and then move that in. Grab this one, double G, and move that up. We're going to then grab this edge and this edge, and we're going to Control B. I'm going to bevel them with 3 sections, so it's 1 mouse slide up, like so. And then we're going to do the same up here. So let's hide our modifier. We want this edge, put the modifier back on, Control B, scroll slightly up, add a little bit of detail, Control R to add an edge loop in the center of these, scale out S, grab this edge loop, double G, scale that up, grab this one, Alt left click, double G, bring that down. And then what we can do then, let's have a look at that. And that looks fine. Let's grab this one, let's make that a little bit rounder. And let's move these two in slightly. And do the same for these two. Oops, wrong one. S. Scale that out. Scale that in. Wrong way. S, scale out, and then Control B to bevel. And then shade smooth. Let's have a look. Okay, let's hide our modifier. And we're going to give this some edges as well. I'm going to bevel that out. So Control B. Let's go to 1. Let's do 2. So 2 scrolls up on the mouse, just like that. Let's add an edge here, and then double G to edge slide that up. And then grab this inner one, sorry, this upper one, Control B to bevel that edge. There we go. And then we're going to do the same down at the bottom. So let's fix this bottom section. Let's have a look at how this looks. And let's have a look. So we can do one here. Control B. Let's add some edges. So we're going to go from 1 to 2 to 3. And we'll do something, looking at the picture on the left, something along the lines, maybe add one more, so it's 4, just like so. And then I'm going to add an edge here. We can do 1, 2, maybe 2, that's fine. That's looking okay. That looks good. That's good enough. Let's select this edge, Control B to bevel. This one, Control B. This inner one, Control B. So we can get rid of this edge loop, close seam. We only need this lower one. Let's have a look around. We need to seal this, connect these points, mark seam. So select those 2 edges, press U, and then select mark seam. Now we've got some hidden here as well. So we can select this line, Control B, give that a little bit of a bevel as well. Yep, that's fine. So that looks all perfectly fine. We're going to grab this edge here actually. Let's see, that one, yeah. And I'm going to bevel that out as well. So we'll go 1, 2, and that should be, makes it nice and smooth. We can always add one more to the viewport levels just to see what it looks like. So it's not like for like, but it's close enough. We could probably do a little bit better here. But that looks okay. That's close enough to what we want. Spend a bit more time on this, we could probably get it even more accurate than it is, but I mean that looks perfectly fine. So with this loop, we're going to try and size match as much as we can. So we're going to add a circle to this. So let's go and do Shift A, and then we're going to add in, excuse me, oh, just have a drink, 1 second. So we're going to add a circle in, and we are going to also do a separate piece of the glass. So we're going to go Shift A, and then we're going to add a circle. We're going to scroll up, so G and Z to move it upwards. We're going to, let's actually, do you know what? No, we're not. We're not going to add a circle. Let's get rid of that. Let's add a cylinder. Let's add in a little bit more, maybe a little bit more geometry to that. Let's do 42 edges or verts, and let's move that up G and Z. Let's rotate that on the X by 90. So I did RX and then typed 90, and then we're going to scale that in on the Y to roughly about the thickness that we need. So the thickness that we need, let's hide that for a second, will be this rim here. So we're going to come out a little bit on the Y, and then move that down, just like so. I mean, yeah, that looks okay. We could probably do it a little bit bigger, actually. We could probably do something like maybe even that size. That looks okay. So we're going to move that down on the Z axis, like so. And then we're going to grab this face and this face. We're going to go I to inset. Let's get our reference image back. I would say that's probably about right. And then what we can do then is we can press right click. If you don't have loop tools enabled, you can enable that in the edit panel. If you don't have it, but you can still do that, you just go to edges and then you just do bridge edge loops. This will basically, it will bridge those two selected faces and then fill in the gaps all around on the inside for us, so we don't have to manually cut that out. So now that that's done, we have our basic shape there set up, which is our circular glass frame, and we also have our handle done. Now what we want to do is we need to add a little bit of detail and a little bit of a bevel, because they wouldn't have such a sharp edge. As you can see here, it's quite smooth over those edges. So we're gonna bevel these outer and inner edges. So let's select all of those edge loops. So there should be 4 in total. So make sure you've got 4. And then we're gonna go Control B. We're gonna scroll back on the mouse, so we've only got 1, and then we're gonna go 1. Actually, yeah. So come out of edit mode, go to object mode, Control A, and then set rotation scale. Then go back into edit mode and then bevel your edges, and it'll give you a more accurate result. So now that we have that done, we should be able to, oops, we should be able to get away with just that. And then we can do shade smooth. That looks okay. That looks pretty good. That looks fine. We're going to add an edge loop into the center. There's a reason why. And then we are going to separate this with Shift and D, and then move that out on the the Y, like so. Then we're going to right click, go down to separate by selection, come out of edit mode back into object mode with the tab key, like so. Select that ring that we separated by selection, go into edit mode, select all, go to vertices, press E and S to scale in, E, S to scale in, and then once we've done that, we can then grab the faces here, go to faces, and then do grid fill. Now this is going to give us better geometry, better topology for our glass screen, so we can apply some good detail to that. And now that we've done that, we have all that selected, we can move that back into position. So the easiest way to do that is to select our geometry, go right click, set origin to geometry, select our magnifying glass, select that inner ring, Shift S, cursor to selected, come out of edit mode back into object mode, select our glass, Shift S, selection to cursor, and that will place that perfectly centered inside of that glass frame for our magnifying glass. So there we have the handle done, we have the frame pretty much finished, and we have the glass in place. Now all we need to do now is add our edge, our seams for our UV unwrapping. Excuse me. And then we can potentially, if we don't spot any problems, move this into substance for decorating and texturing. So here's our magnifying glass. What we're going to do now is a couple of checks prior to exporting. So we're going to go up here to our overlays panel, and we're going to go to face orientation, and we can see here we have a couple of colors. Now blue is good, red is not bad, but it's not right. So red means that the light isn't hitting that side. It doesn't have existing geometry. There's nothing there for it to interact with. So if you were to load this into a game software, you'd be able to see through it like a window. There would be no rendered sides. So the blue is where the light hits. So this is the right way for the face to face, basically. And the red is the wrong way. So we want to, obviously the magnifying glass is going to be a double-sided material anyway. What we could do is make two of these and have them facing out. But because we can do double-sided materials, it's not a problem to have it the wrong way around. But what we want to do really is just flip that. So we can select it, press R, Z, and then 90, and then do it again, R, Z, and then 90. We can just type 180, but you know, it's fine. We're going to do the same thing for the handle. So we're going to select our handle. We're going to go and apply our subdivision modifier. We're going to select it, tab, select all, and then we're going to go to mesh, to normals, and then we're going to go and recalculate outside. And you can see now that we have all blue. So this is going to calculate correctly, but don't worry about the back face, because we can fix that in the game engine that you would be, oops, microphone's falling, would be using for the magnifying glass. So now that we have that done, let's do our seams. So we're going to select the inner edge here. So let's have a look. Sorry, no, this one. The one that's just on before it goes over the edge. So it'll be this one, and we'll do this loop to cut it. And we'll also do, let's have a look, this one and this one. So now we have all those edges marked. We can then press U, mark seam. We don't need to do anything with the flat plane or the circular plane because it's already flat. The reason we do this the reason you would add seams to an object is because if you look at this picture here, let's rotate this round on the Y. So just pretending that this is our UV grid. When you add the cuts, if you remember back to primary school or elementary, if your teacher ever gave you a cube and told you to, sorry, a piece of paper with like all of the sides of the cube on, and then told you to make that cube, and you had to then glue the edges or the sides or use sticky tape. That's kind of what that is basically what UV unwrapping is. You're adding cuts which you'll find in objects in the real world. So the way I learn, if you go and look at like a magnifying glass, or if you go and look at a cardboard box, or if you look at a computer monitor, you can see where the seams are on the computer monitor, where those gaps in the plastic, that's your seam. So when you're adding seams to an object, when you're UV unwrapping, so let's go to the UV editor and I'll show you. Let's move this down to, let's do there. So here's our UV grid, which is basically where your image is going to be projected to for your texture. So here we have our magnifying glass, and if we select all of these and then go to synchronize, so we can deselect them but they'll still be there. Let's have a look. There we go. Now this is a poor representation because it's not been unwrapped yet. So let's unwrap the frame. So let's select all, U, and then go unwrap. So we can see here that we have our unwrap, but this isn't what we want. We want it all to be straight like so. These are perfect. These are perfectly fine. This is exactly what you're looking for a circular shape, a nice straight UV unwrap. But these ones, they've been cut correctly, which is where these edges are. You can see here where that cut's gone through, it's perfectly fine, but we need to now alter this to make that straight. So there is a trick to it. What you can do is you can select this closest to center face. You're going to go to edge selection. You're going to select this edge, do S, Y, 0. You're going to select this edge, oops, not like that. You're going to select this edge, S, Y, 0, and you can see what's happened now. It's straightened these two edges. So we're going to zoom in, and we're going to select this one. I'm going to do S, X, 0, and you notice that straighten that edge off. So if you watch this closely, S, X, and 0, we now have a perfectly straight and flat face. So we're going to select this face first, press L to select the rest of that ring, right click, follow active quads, and we now have a perfectly unwrapped circular shape, this is what we want it to look like. We're going to do exactly the same to this one. So we're going to zoom in, we're going to find roughly around that center, so it'll be probably this one here. We're going to go to edge selection, select that face, that edge, S, Y, 0, select this one, S, Y, 0, S, X, 0, S, X, 0, face selection mode, select this face first, hover your mouse over another face and then press L, and then if we go and right click, follow active quads, we now have two perfectly unwrapped circles. By perfectly unwrapped, if you were to add like a UV grid to this, the UV grid texture would run perfectly around this frame. Excuse me. Okay, so now that we've done that, we have all of these done. So this is done. So we're going to select these two, going to move these over, zoom in. We've got a problem here because these aren't perfectly straight. So how do we fix this? Because everything else is straight. We do exactly the same thing. I know it's tedious, I know it's a bit time consuming, but it's a necessary process when it comes to doing UV unwrapping, because you'll end up with better looking textures in the long run. So we're going to go to edge selection mode, so it'll be this one, or 2 on the keyboard. We're going to select this top edge, SY0, select this one, SY0, select this one, SX0, select this one here, not these two, but this one, so the one's connected to this face, SX0, select this one first, hover your mouse over the one above it, and press L, and then right click, follow active quads. And if we zoom in now, you can see it's straightened all of those edges out. We're going to do exactly the same for this one, because this one has a bit of a sticky out bit at the bottom, and we don't want that because it will warp the texture slightly. So if we go up here and go to display stretch, you can see that these are all dark blue, dark blue. These ones are a little bit on the light side, which should be fine because they're all the same. They're not any more stretched than that. But just for clarity, blue is better than green or yellow. So then we're going to straighten these out as well. So let's go to this one. We'll do SY0, this one SY0, SX0, SX0, select this face, L, right click, follow. So now we have all of those done. Perfectly fine. Let's bring them in because they need to be in the box. There we go. And then we can pop them there. That should be fine. There we go. So that's in, that's done. Now we just need to do the glass and the handle. So let's do the glass first. Let's go and then unwrap that. There we go. That's perfect. Actually, what we can do is move that out. Let's get our handle. Tab, UV, unwrapping with the U key, unwrap. This might take a little bit longer. There we go. So now we have all of this geometry, very dense, nice high resolution handle. It doesn't necessarily have to be this detailed, but you know, it looks better. It's perfectly fine to use in Unreal because Nanite will handle it really well. If you were to use this in things like Unity, I'm not too sure if they've got anything that handles high detailed geometry, but it wouldn't be a problem in Unreal. So we're going to zoom in on our roughly center because we can see we've got it skew-ift there and a little bit skew-ift here. So we're going to go and zoom in about central. We're going to select this face, go to edge selection, top one, SY0, make sure we're on the same one, which it is, SY0, and then we're going to go and select this edge, SX0, SX0, select the face, L, right click, follow active quads. So that's nice and straight now. I'm going to pop that there. This isn't as important because this is just that bottom piece. And then we can move that in position. So now if we select all, we can see what we're dealing with. So let's grab this circle, let's move that out of the way. Let's grab this one, let's move that across like so. Let's grab our glass. If you ever played a game that has an inventory system that's like Tetris, this is kind of how you're working with this. The more space that your faces take up, so I'll show you what I mean. So let's move that out of the way. So if I was to take up more space on this UV grid with this glass, like so, then the more texture quality, the higher the resolution the texture will be, if that makes sense. So Control Z, there we go. So we've got quite a lot of wasted space here. I mean, that should be fine, to be honest. We could probably just get away with just moving these over a little bit to make some space. Like so. And then moving these over as well. And this one. So the more space that they take up, the better it is for texture quality. But also you have to remember to try and fit it all into the same on the same UV texture space. We have to get it all on the same one. We could do U-dimensionals, UDIMs, but I'm not too sure if everything supports a UDIM. I know you can use those with virtual textures in Unreal, so that should be fine. But there's no overlaps. We can double check for overlaps by going to select and then do select overlap, and nothing's highlighted orange. That means we're good. We'll do one more check to make sure that everything is facing the right way, which it is. So now that we have that unwrapped, we're good to go into Substance. So that's all done. We're going to select all of our objects. We're going to select the glass first, actually. We'll go down to Materials, Add, and we'll call this the glass. We're going to go and select the frame, add a material, and name this one to glass frame. And then we're going to select the handle, add a material, and name this one handle. So we should have a different material for each one, which will help us a lot when it comes to Substance. We can go ahead and Control J to join those objects. So now they're all one object and they'll move together. And that should be good for us to go into Substance. Yep, so let's move over to Substance. So we're going to go to File at the top left, go to FBX, and we're going to name this one Magnifying Glass. I'm going to name this one V3 because I've done two others. I'm going to go and selected objects only. So make sure we select our object, and we've got it named, selected, and then export. Hop over to Substance Painter. Who's messaging me? I'm not that popular. In Substance Painter, we're going to go to File. Excuse me. And then we're going to go to New. And then we're going to go to Document Resolution, set that to 4K. Leave it as default template, Unreal Engine 4 starter assets. Go to Select. Click on our Magnifying Glass. Open. And then in here, we're then going to click OK. We should have the magnifying glass that we just made in Blender, as you can see here. So then what we're going to do is bake our textures. Now the good thing as well about having a decent UV unwrap in Blender is that in Substance Painter, it'll bake those maps a lot quicker. If you have an unwrap that is absolutely chaotic, and very, very detailed with parts all over the place in different rotations and variations of size, it will take a lot longer. So we're going to go and select 4K at the top. We're going to click on glass. We're going to uncheck thickness and ID. Click on glass frame, uncheck thickness and ID, and handle, uncheck thickness and ID. So now that that's done, we're going to go to anti-aliasing. I'm going to go super sampling 16 times, and then that should be everything. And then we're going to click on bake and let that do what it needs to do. Once we've finished the baking process, we can take the croissants out of the oven. Oh, actually, I really like some right now. Excuse me. So once that's finished baking, which is nearly done, perfect. We can then go to return to painting mode, and we can marvel at our creation. So there we have it all unwrapped. You can see where that red was in Blender, which will be this here. Let me show you. So when we rotated that in Substance, you can see the side that has the red isn't being rendered in Substance, but it's not a problem because it will actually render once we add a glass material to it. So the reason why we added different textures for different parts is because now it makes it easier for us to basically paint or decorate those parts because we have individual textures. So instead of adding a smart material, we're going to create our own. So these are smart materials. I have made a few smart materials. I've got the carpet one. I've got a few others as well. I'm not going to sit here try and find them, but they are in there somewhere. We're going to make our own from scratch. So we're going to go to the handle first. We're going to remove our base layer because we don't really want that. We're going to add a fill layer. A really handy tip as well, there are a few websites that give you the hex values for your colours for different things like rust, metal, bronze, brass, copper, so you can get a really good idea of what they are. So what we could do, we can steal the colour from this one, let's drag and drop that on. This will look perfectly fine, but we're going to make our own. If you're happy with that, just use that one. But we're going to go into our bronze armour, because this isn't really armour, and we're going to get our base colour, which is this one, and we're going to copy that, and let's get rid of this. We're going to copy that value into our own, like so. What we're going to do now is we're going to scroll down to metallic, and we're going to slide that all the way up. We're going to drop the roughness down slightly to about 0.2. Excuse me. And then we're going to add a brush effect to the bronze or brass, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to go on our fill layer. We're going to right click, add filter. In here we can select a brush filter, which I believe is this one. Yep. So there we have our brushed brass kind of style. We're going to increase the scale of this slightly, maybe 12 or 14, and we're going to reduce the brushing intensity. Once it disappears, we're going to slowly slide that back up until we can just about see those grains coming through. So I'd say 0.3 is probably perfect on that one. Just like that. We're going to go to the top here, click on our globe, go to specular quality, and then set that to very high or ultra. This will represent more of what it looks like in Unreal Engine 5 in terms of specular reflections and detail there. So that's done. What we're going to do now is add some kind of like a grunge or dirt layer to this. So we can go and add, let's copy this layer. So let's go and copy layers. Let's paste the layer. And then we can remove the brushed linear effect from this pasted layer. And then we're going to go to masks. And then we're going to add a, we could probably do dirt cavities, but let's just add dirt, like so. Once it's calculated that and added it on, we won't notice any difference because they're the same color. Let's click on our color. Let's increase the roughness because this is the dirt layer. Maybe about 0.75 or 0.7 should do. In our mask, in our color, we're gonna make that slightly darker. So we can see if I drop this all the way down, we can see it's changing there. So we can make this really dark. Then in our mask, which is this one, we're going to go to mask editor, and we can increase the amount of dirt or decrease. So we're going to go to around, maybe let's do 0.6. That looks okay. There's a little bit of grime and grunge on there. We can add another layer as well. We can copy this layer. Let's go to copy layers. Let's paste this layer in. Let's paste layers. Let's remove the mask, and we'll add a dirt cavity. See how that looks. There we go. That's fine. So that's added dirt in the areas that it would naturally build up. You can see here around those kind of sharp edges. You've got more of a layer of build up of dirt and grime. So we can probably adjust this one slightly. We can decrease the levels a little bit and the contrast down. That looks fine. Okay, so now that we've got the handle pretty much set up, we could just copy. Let's copy layers and then go to our glass frame, delete this one, and then paste them in. And we can see there that it automatically sets that up for us on the top piece too. We have that done. That looks fine. So we have our magnifying glass taking shape. And then what we want to do is, just give me 2 seconds. Okay, so what we want to do now is we're going to add in some detail. We could probably remove or reduce that brush effect for this one, and then we can also probably remove the cavity, because there isn't really any cavities or hard edges on this, so we can remove that one. That looks better. And we can probably change the color slightly as well. I mean, that looks okay. Let's have a look at the reference image. There's a lot of dirt around those sides. It's a different color, but it's fine. Let's do a little bit brighter. So that looks like. That looks good. I prefer that one actually. Let's go to our handle. Let's paste that into this value and see how it looks. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, so that's done. Let's do our glass. So select our glass layer. Excuse me, apologise. So in our glass layer, there's a couple of things that we need to change to make it work properly. So we're going to click on our globe, and then where we see PBR metal rough, you need to then go to this one, which is called PBR metal rough with alpha blending, and that will enable us to add a glass effect to the object with opacity. So now if we go to texture settings for our glass layer and click on this channels button with the plus, we now have opacity available. If we hadn't have done that prior step, the step before, it wouldn't have shown opacity. So we have opacity enabled now in our glass texture. We go back to layers, delete this one, and we can create our own, or we can drop on a glass film material, which is fine to do. And you can see there that we have this basic smart glass material. So what we're going to do is we're going to select this, we're going to delete the dirt layer because we don't need that, and then we're going to create our own. So let's add a layer in, and this one's going to be our dirt. So we're going to do like dust soft 2. There's not much going on there. Let's increase the balance, see what it looks like. Okay, so it's not quite strong enough, that one. So we'll do, let's check this one out. Nope. Let's see if we can find one. Dust dirty. There we go. That's better. So then in our properties for our mask, I'm going to go to global balance. Let's reduce that a little bit. So we have something that looks kind of like this. And then we can do a, let's have a look, see what we can add in. Excuse me. We can add in some details to this now. So we could do a path, some details around on a path for the object. You can see now it's actually being rendered on both sides, which is perfectly fine. So let's go to our glass frame. Let's remove the brush effect, And let's add in another layer on top of this. And let's do let's see if we can find something. Let's do dirt dry. Yeah, that looks fine. Let's add this one as our color. Let's copy that in, base color, and then paste. And then we can drop that down a little bit. There we go. And then in our handle, let's add a little bit of detail. So there's a few ways we can do this. We can paint it on by hand. If you're good at that, and that's a perfectly valid way of doing it. So we're going to add a layer in, a paintbrush. So make sure you click on handle, go to your paintbrush, add layer. And this will enable us to paint on our handle. And what we're going to do is we're going to shrink that size down. We're going to turn off the color because we don't need that, and we're going to decrease the height value by maybe -0.1. So when we draw on this, it kind of has this cut in effect. As you can see, it's like a dint. Could probably go a little bit lower actually. Maybe let's do -0.2. Yeah, that's better. And then shrink this down a bit more. There you go. You can see there that you can draw in the detail, and it adds this kind of dent look to it. So it's a really good way of adding detail to something without actually adding extra geometry and changing the topology of the item. It's just a trick using the normal maps, which creates offsets of light to look like there's depth to the item. Let me just put my phone away. Excuse me. Okay, so that looks okay. That looks good. And then we're going to add a bit of detail. So let's click on our layer one. We'll name this one our detailing. We're going to select fill layer 1, 2, and 3. These three. Control G. And then just name that one base color handle. And then we can close that up. So then we can deselect that at any time to hide that. Excuse me. Okay, so we've got our paintbrush ready. Now we just need to add the detail in. So there's a few ways we could do this. We can go on our symmetry, and we can do symmetry and do our Y or Z, should I say. Let's double check which one it is. It could be X. Let's do radial. Radial on the Y. Yes, this one. Okay. So, oops. So now that we have our symmetry radial set up, we're going to set this angle span to 360, so it goes all the way around, and we can increase this to maybe something along the lines of 16, and that'll add circles all the way around. But we might not want circles, we might want something a little bit more fancy. So we're going to click on our alphas and scroll excuse me, and scroll down until we see a pattern or shapes that we kind of like or want to use. I quite like this one. Now that we have that on, we can increase the size. Yeah, I quite like that one. We could do this all the way down the handle if you wanted to make it a bit more interesting. It'd look pretty cool. Or you can just do it in this section here. Completely up to you. I'm going to kind of just do it so far down and then continue from the bottom. So how many did I have at the top? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'll do probably something similar across the bottom to the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Just to give us a little bit of detailing on that handle, which really starts to make it kind of like pop out a little bit. And then what we can do then is we can add in a maybe something different, like one of these fancy Celtic crosses, or something like, yeah, we can do one of these, and then we can add in just that to finish off, and that to finish off. And then if we wanted to, we can add some detail here. I mean, I think that looks fine the way it is. That looks pretty cool. It's a nice little bit of extra detail there. And then we could do the same for this upper glass frame now. It's a little bit harder to do with symmetry because of the shape. I don't think it will come out right, but there is a trick that we can use, which is called paths. And for our paths, what we can do, I know this is turned into a very long video, but hopefully it's detailed enough that people will learn how to also model along to it. And yeah, please watch it to the end. Hopefully, I want to help people learn, so please try and watch it to the end. I know you get bored of me at some point during the video, but I'm trying my best here, guys. So we've got our glass frame, and we're going to add a layer in that's similar to how we did with our handle. And we're going to name this one also to detailing. We're going to select our fill layer 2 and these other two. Excuse me. We're going to select all 3 of our fill layers. Control G to group them. We're going to name this one to our base color frame. And then we can minimize that. So it just makes it a little bit neater and easier to find things. So we have this nice circular frame here, but we want to add a detail to it that goes all the way around. Now, there's a few ways we can do this. We could do this manually, kind of how we did earlier, but it would be very hard to make sure that we get it perfectly even and spaced all the way around. So there is another way, which is we're going to click on this pen, which is our paint along path tool, and then we're going to zoom in like so, and we're going to click where we want our start point to be. Now, it doesn't matter if it's not showing the detail that you want, because we can adjust this post path. So we can add the path and then adjust it afterwards. And then the next point, we're going to try and get it as central as possible. So let's grab it and drag it. And then we're going to try and kind of look to see where that line is, and then left click. And then maybe move this over a little bit. And then we're going to go again and left click, and then left click, and then do it again, left click. So I'm not getting it very even here, but I'm trying my best. And then do it again, left click. Let's move that path over slightly. There we go. Try and straighten it off. Left click again. Turn this around now and look this way. We're going to go and left click here, and then here, and then maybe there. Yep. And then last but not least, this one down the bottom. So there we have our path added to our it's a drunken path. It's an Irish builder's path. I can say that because I've got Irish blood. Right, so in here now, we can scroll up. It's not very straight. We can scroll up to size and we can reduce that. Now you'll see there, the beauty of having paths is we can do this. We can add and remove detail and change size, scale, spacing, all after we've placed the path, which is really, really good compared to manually painting. Whereas if you add the detail in and then you go, oh no, I wanted it to look like this, you'd have to re-add that detail. It's really frustrating. So we're going to reduce the size down, and then we're going to select, let's do our Celtic, this one. You can zoom in on that. You can see it's added it in, but there's far too many of them. And then we can zoom in on this now to check it. We're going to go down to our spacing, and we're going to increase the spacing like so. And then scroll down to brush. We're going to remove color, and then we're going to decrease the height about minus, let's do minus 0.2, which is about right. That looks good. And then what we're going to do then is, let's go back up to our spacing, which is this one. Let's increase that a little bit more, and then increase our size slightly. That looks good. What we can do is grab this path, like so. Yeah, that looks fine. That looks alright. And then we have that all kind of done, in a sense. Bear with me 1 second. Yeah, okay. So, now that we have that path added on, we can then adjust this to how we want it. So we can increase the size slightly, or we can decrease the size. I think around there is what I want mine to be. We can also adjust the Celtic branch by changing these details. So we can increase them, we can increase the number of the circles, we can decrease them, we can increase the radius, decrease the radius, the width. Can have it something like that, and that looks pretty good. And then if you want to add any other details on, you can paint them on. So if we come back to our paintbrush, see we have this really cool effect going all the way around. So if you wanted to add like how we have 1941 written there, you could paint that on yourself, or you can go to alphas, scroll down until you see the word substance, which is our text, like so, and then we can change that to 1941. We can set it to bold, and we can pop that, oops, centralized, roughly about there. And then that is how you would model, UV unwrap, and texture a magnifying glass. If there's any questions, leave them in the comments. If you want me to do another object, a small object like this, hard surface modeling, then yeah, just let me know. I'm going to be doing some more of these coming into the new year, because I know a lot of people want to learn how to model in Blender. So I tried to make this as detailed as I could. I hope you enjoyed it. I apologize for all my coughing. I can't help it. You know, I have to live with it. So please just put up with it for the video. It's annoying, I know. But yeah, I hope you like that. If you do enjoy the video, like it. If you want to help others as well learn, then share it. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing, because it really helps the channel grow. It gives me a wider audience, and it enables me to reach out to more people. So thanks very much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye for now.